Well, great. We will get started for today. Welcome to the ACTS Town Hall event today. My name is Heather Ramirez, and I am board chair at ACTS Housing. I'm also an adjunct professor here at Marquette Law School. We have a great mix of partners, donors, new faces in this room, and we're just so happy you can all be with us. And thank you for making time to learn more about ACTS and the work that we're doing in Milwaukee. As many of you know, ACTS's mission is empowerment through homeownership. We're a one-stop shop for homeownership, providing homebuyer education, real estate brokerage and development services, home rehab support, and lending services. Since 1995, we have helped nearly 4,000 families purchase homes and become sustainable homeowners in Milwaukee. We won't have time to review our complete business model today, but if you're interested in learning more about ACTS, I would encourage you to sign up for one of our tour of homes. You will receive a survey after this event that will tell you more about those tours, and we would love to have you join one of those tours and see the work of ACTS up close. Today, our discussion will focus on barriers to homeownership and how ACTS is helping families overcome these challenges. Families that work with ACTS typically cannot go out and get pre-approved for a mortgage on day one. Working families often face barriers such as low credit scores, debt, limited resources for a down payment, or language barriers when they're applying for a loan. Today, we will learn more about these barriers and how ACTS and the broader community can help families overcome them. I am honored to introduce Rennell Washington, who has generously agreed to serve as our host today. Rennell is Senior Partnership Development Advisor with American Family Insurance. He's especially well suited to facilitate our conversation today, having spent nearly a decade as a career in banking. In addition to his role at American Family Insurance, Rennell serves as board chair for the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority, and he serves on the board of the Uptown Crossing Business Improvement District, which is BID 16. Rennell is also co-founder and vice president of Social X Milwaukee, a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting group. Please join me in welcoming Rennell.
Well, I don't want to be the individual that separates us from this amazing conversation that we're going to have today, but I do want to greet you all. Happy February, happy Black History Month, happy post-Grammy Day 2 hangover if you participate in that. It is Super Bowl week, so happy Super Bowl week. You'll see Taylor Swift probably more on Sunday than you desire, and for those who love Usher, the Usher concert on Sunday. But we are here at the Marquette Law School and the Lubar Center for Public Policy Research and Civic Education, and this is our Super Bowl in Milwaukee, talking about the importance of affordable housing. So give yourself a round of applause for joining us today. So conversations like this are really important and critical to the city of Milwaukee and the advancement for those who are not only thinking about purchasing an affordable home, but for those who want to achieve the American dream individually or having a family and having a stable place to stay for themselves and their loved ones. Today, we want to talk about how those individuals can aspire to reach that dream. So by show of hands, how many of you were here last year? Okay, high hands. No crab arm, high hands. Okay, so obviously, if you were here last year, and for those who are here this year for the first time, you're in for a treat. We had a fascinating conversation centered around the lack of affordable starter homes in the city of Milwaukee, and of course, the years of individuals outside the state who were purchasing our very coveted single-family homes in our Black and Latin neighborhoods. You also learned about the issue with affordable first-time home buying, and then you also learned about ACTS Housing's effort to curb that change in a landscape where out-of-state investors were purchasing the homes at a very high rates. So today, we're going to learn a little bit more about how ACTS Housing has progressed in that one-year effort. So without further ado, I want to bring to the stage Michael Gosman, President and CEO of ACTS Housing.
Thank you so much, Rennell, for emceeing the event today. So I learned about Axe Housing about 13 years ago. I was an attorney in town and I met the then executive director. And I was just totally inspired by the amazing work that Axe was doing. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know anything about them. But I, upon meeting him, knew I wanted to learn more. And so I became a volunteer with the organization. And at that time, they really were already doing all the things that were necessary to support low-income families and help them transition into home ownership. They were doing some homebuyer education at a pretty high level. They were helping families access the best bank or credit union financing that might exist in the market. They had a real estate brokerage. And so if you were a family who was working with a coach who didn't have a real estate relationship, you'd be able to work with a member of the Axe team. And they also were coaching families through the rehab of distressed homes, something that was and is incredibly important, especially in the aftermath of the foreclosure crisis. And so I think a lot of people, when they learned about Axe at that time, their response was something like, "Oh, that's so cute. Like that's a really nice little thing, and it's nice that there's some good little things happening in the community." And it was cute, and it also was like incredibly meaningful, and not just meaningful for one family, but meaningful for large numbers of families. And so I'm really proud that since 1995, we've helped almost 4,000 families transition from renters to homeowners. And so to give you some perspective on what that means in a city like Milwaukee, that means approximately 3% of all the single family and duplex homes in our cities have been purchased by an Axe family, right? So it's getting to be a little bit more than cute. The total investment of the families who purchased these homes now is upwards of $350 million that they've made towards the purchase and towards the rehab of those homes. And it's very cool that almost a quarter of those homes, maybe a little bit more than a quarter of those homes, actually required rehab. And so our team was available to support families to fix those homes up and make sure that they were living in a safe, decent home. And best of all, the program is sustainable. And so it's one thing to get families into homes. It's another thing for them to be successful. On an annual basis, less than 1% of Axe families over the last 28 years have experienced a foreclosure, which is about half of the overall foreclosure rate in the neighborhoods that we're serving. So even though Axe is working with the lowest income families who have the most barriers to home ownership, they're able to sustain home ownership at a really high level. So starting with the COVID surge in housing and demand for housing, for the first time in our history, we looked at ourselves and we said, we're not really living up to our promise. So the promise that Axe Housing had always made to our community was, if you're a family that's willing to do the hard work to get ready to purchase and fix up a home, we're going to be able to help you find a home that meets your needs. And that was not happening the way it had previously. We were finding that families were getting ready, they were getting pre-approved, they might be getting mortgage financing, but ultimately they weren't finding that home that actually could meet their needs. They were losing in bidding wars, transactions were happening off market. And so we needed to do some soul searching to figure out what's happening in this market and what can we do differently to make sure that we're setting up families to actually be successful. So what we discovered is that around a third of all the transactions in our market were cash transactions. So these are transactions that sometimes from investors, sometimes from individuals, but clearly a cash offer is an attractive offer for sellers. And our families were not in a position to make a cash offer. They certainly weren't in a position to have offers that didn't include a financing contingency and inspection contingency. And so that was putting our families at a disadvantage. Increasing numbers of homes were also being sold as part of packages, where instead of one home being sold to one buyer, it was 10 homes or 25 homes or 50 homes being sold to one buyer. And I don't know about you, but I don't know any families with low to moderate income who are able to purchase 10 or 15 homes in order to live in one and then sell the rest to others. And then the third factor is that large investors, mostly from outside of the state of Wisconsin, had started purchasing up a significant percentage of the homes in our community, focused on the north side of Milwaukee, and turning these homes that were built as owner-occupant opportunities into permanent rentals. And so this graph, which the data here is provided by John Johnson, who I saw John come in. John is a hero in the ACTS offices. I don't know where you are, John, but John's a researcher here and has done just a remarkable job of helping all of us understand what's happening in the real estate market. And so we said something's got to change. We need to figure out a way to level the playing field and make Milwaukee a place where low-income families can be successful purchasing homes. In 2022, as a result of some of this research, the ACTS Housing team and board did some strategic planning work. And what became very clear was that addressing this inventory shortage, figuring out a way to help families access greater inventory, was a key strategic priority. And we had talked about a pilot where we would maybe purchase 10 homes or 15 homes a year and see if we could sustainably transition those homes into owner occupancy. And at that time, the Community Development Alliance, a group of philanthropists and government leaders and neighborhood residents and neighborhood groups had come together, and they'd done a lot of work to understand the needs of neighborhoods and of families in our community. And they said, yes, what you're trying to do is great, and it's nowhere near enough. So we collaborated with them on a plan to actually get to a point where we'd be able to purchase 100 homes annually and convert those into owner-occupant opportunities. And I'm pleased that we've made progress on that plan. We're a little bit more than a year in. We've raised most of the philanthropic dollars we need to operate that model. We've begun to form a team, and we've already learned a lot in a relatively short period of time. So I'm always pleased to highlight our team. So our ACTS Homes team right now is 4 individuals strong. Dorothy York, who is being pointed to by one of our former board members, leads this team. She was our chief operating officer prior to taking on this leadership role with ACTS Homes, and we are thrilled that she's leading this effort. And this team, as good as they are, is not going to be enough. We're going to be adding at least 4 or 5 staff to the team this year, including a vice president role. And so you're going to be hearing a lot more about this because we need your help. You might be someone in this room might be a candidate for one of those roles. And if you're not, you almost certainly know someone who could help us achieve our goal of purchasing 100 homes annually that can be sold affordably to families. Some good work's already been done. So over the last year or so, we've actually invested $3 million in the purchase of 44 homes. They've come from a whole host of sources. We've bought homes from investors. We've bought homes off of MLS. We've bought homes from the city, and we've gone to sheriff's sale and purchased homes in that fashion. Included in this, we bought 2 portfolios of homes, 10 homes each, that contribute to the 44 properties that we've been able to purchase. And as you can see, most of our homes are on the north side of the city. Buying the homes is not easy, and neither is rehabbing the homes. And so most of the homes that we purchase, they require some significant rehab in order to be great homes for families to move into. And so we leaned heavily on the fact that ACTS has been coaching families through the rehab of distressed homes these last years. And as a result, we were able to pretty quickly develop a network of contractors. So far, we have 19 that are actively working on our projects. The vast majority of them are Milwaukee-based small contractors. And so far, we've put nearly $700,000 into the rehab of the homes that we've purchased. And it's gratifying that we've bought homes. It's gratifying that we've rehabbed homes. None of this works unless we can effectively sell homes and sell homes to families who can benefit from the transaction, who are families with barriers who need these opportunities. And on that regard, so far, so good. We've successfully sold 9 of the homes that we've purchased. It's very important to us that the average sale price is affordable. And so the average purchase price of $134,000 makes it within reach of low to moderate income families. And many of those families also benefit from some down payment assistance, either through some great programs at the city or the state, or from bank partners that provide some down payment assistance for those purchases. Reaching families with barriers has always been ACT's mission. It's not enough just to sell homes. There's lots of organizations, institutions that sell homes. We need to be reaching families that otherwise would likely be locked out of home ownership. And that's exactly what we've been able to do with this ACTS Homes model. About 90% of the families, I think 8 of 9 families who purchased homes using our Axe Homes program are earning 80% or less of the county median income. So $72,000 a year is 80% of the county median income for a family of 3, to give you a sense. And the families who are purchasing these homes are from groups that have historically not had the same access to homeownership. So more than half the families are Black, more than nearly a quarter of the families are Hispanic. I'm going to bring my culture into this a little bit. So there's a famous Yiddish saying that says, man plans and God laughs. And I think that's a reasonable summation of what's happened in sort of the last 15 months since we launched Axe Homes. Fascinatingly, the major investors who were purchasing so many homes, and we didn't know if they were the smart money or not, but they certainly were very active in the market. They have completely, in many cases, stopped their purchasing activity. And in one case in particular with Vinebrook, they've sold a significant number of homes. And so they sold 200 homes last year. If the name's familiar, there's been a lot of reporting on their work in the Journal Sentinel that's been excellent, including some questioning of whether Vinebrook will remain a going concern. And so this landscape that we thought we understood has changed dramatically just in the last couple of years. The landscape's also changed in terms of bulk sales. And so when we launched this effort, we were seeing that 500, 600, 700, nearly 800 homes a year were being sold in bulk sales. These are sales that families have no chance at. In 2023, that number actually is down to 245 homes that are sold as part of these bulk sales. Thanks again to John Johnson. This is preliminary data, but he provided this for the presentation. And that's mostly a good story. Like, we don't think our community is better off if homes are being sold as part of portfolios. We love the idea that individual homes are sold to individual families where anyone would have a chance. But it is a little bit of a challenge for our Axe Homes model. And so we need to remain nimble. We need to be able to adjust to that changing environment. All that being said, we're pleased with the progress we've made. The model has actually been sustainable. The homes we've sold have generated sort of the necessary surplus to allow our approach to be self-sustaining, meaning that after the $10 million that we need to finish raising of philanthropy to fund the revolving fund, we won't require ongoing operating support from donors. We have an amazing task force that we've formed of professionals in the community who are helping us with the strategy. We've done a bunch of hiring. We got a bunch more hiring to do, as I shared. And in 2024, our goal is to purchase 80 homes and sell 60 homes this year. So, we're probably a year away from being able to reach that 100 purchase, 100 sale level. But I think we can all agree that this is a significant contributor to opening up access to homeownership in our community. And with that, I think I'm turning it over for some Q&A right now.
Check. All right. So we will improvise. Can you all hear me? Check. Okay. So you take this one and sit here, and I'll use this. All right. So we have about 10 minutes for Q&A. First and foremost, can we give Mike a round of applause? I think one of the interesting things is what Mike just discussed is not just a Milwaukee issue. I think a lot of cities are being targeted by large investment corporations and other individuals with large pockets that can do these bulk sales. And I remember before I left the banking world in 2019, I would get calls from Florida, New York, and California asking if I would finance 100 plus portfolios of single families and duplexes here in the city of Milwaukee. And I thought that was the strangest thing in the world because the institution I worked for at the time was solely based on the state of Wisconsin. But I'm glad that there's a solution in place. So I do want to give a round of applause to Mike, the board, and the staff that are making this possible to take back home ownership and make that a priority here in the city of Milwaukee. So thank you for having the foresight. So Mike, you did just share some information, and I'll ask the first question, and then I want to see if the audience has any questions. What do you feel is the most challenging thing about this fund and what you're trying to accomplish here in Milwaukee?
I think the biggest change for us is, we've been in the real estate world for 25 years, but we've never actually been the purchaser. We've never been the rehabber ourselves. And to do that work well, you need a great team and you need great systems. We were incredibly fortunate to have Dorothy York, who was sort of like tailor-made to start this initiative and begin to lead it. But building the team that you need to do the work and then giving them the structure they need to thrive, that's the uphill climb, and we've done a great deal of that work, and it has me really bullish on what we're going to be able to achieve this year and moving forward.
Okay. Any audience questions at all? Sir, right here.
One, on the screen you had $1,200 for PITI. I have no idea what that is. My second question is, if the houses are selling, I think last year you said around 135, and the family incomes are around 72, they would seem to be very affordable.
Yeah, thank you for the questions, George. So first of all, PITI, I'd written down that I was supposed to say what that meant, but then I didn't do it. So that's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So that's, the vast majority of the costs of owning the home to a family. It doesn't include, the utilities and other things like that. But $1,200 is, listen, it's not easy for families who are earning, $60,000, $70,000 a year. That's still a significant dent in their monthly expenditures. But as compared to what these families often are paying to rent, properties that are not decent, are not safe, it's affordable for many of the families who are going through our program.
So that 135 represents the price of purchasing the property and the rehab.
Yeah. So great question. So the $135,000 purchase price, that's actually the purchase price to the family for the move-in ready home. So Axe Homes has already done the rehab. And so in most of these transactions, they're getting a move-in ready home for $135,000. They're getting a mortgage to finance the transaction. And that's where they wind up having a monthly cost on average of around $1,200 a month that they're paying to the bank.
I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. Yes, sir.
One of the problems with these portfolios of homes is maintenance, and it affects the neighborhoods because the buildings aren't maintained as they would be if a homeowner occupied them. Is the city doing enough to police, in your view, the maintenance of these homes?
Great question, Herb. So it's a real challenge. I wasn't sure a few years ago whether these companies that were buying up all the homes were the smart money or not. I think I know now that in many cases they were not, and they didn't necessarily know what they were getting themselves into. So what I think you see now, and I think some of the paring back of portfolios that you see, is an awareness from these entities that forget being a good neighbor, just to make sure that the homes don't continue to deteriorate. They need to pare back their portfolio to retain the capital, because these homes often need more than they think that they need or they thought that they needed. And I'm going to punt on that. I think it's a really tough question. What more can and should the city do? Obviously, there's a lot of interest in making sure that landlords, being a landlord in Milwaukee, it's you don't need a license to be a landlord. You need a license to do lots of things. The most important thing that is in someone's life is, their most important relationship is often with their landlord. That's the person who is deciding if they have a decent place, safe place to live or not. And I certainly think there's more that could be done to make sure that more families are living in decent conditions.
Yes.
With the average purchase price of $135,000, I know you also listed sometimes there's grants for the down payment, but does that price, other than the grant, represent a true cost, or is there additional subsidy that Axe is putting in to get that low price?
Great question. So question of whether there's subsidy in the transaction. And the answer is no. So the Axe Homes model is not predicated on us selling homes at deep discounts. It's predicated on us getting homes that otherwise families wouldn't have access to and selling them at fair, affordable prices. So that's what the model is all about. We need to earn just a little bit more than our costs in order to cover our staffing so that the model is sustainable. But 135 is the true all-in cost of what that home is being sold to the family. And typically that allows us to have just a little bit of room to make sure that we're not constantly needing to fundraise to keep the operation going.
All right. So we are at time, unfortunately, unless you have a very quick question. I think I saw you kind of go up. Is it brief or is it going to take a little time?
Thank you. Wonderful question. Question around, what can we do? Can families sell the homes immediately? And this is different. Typically if a family gets a grant, there's a 3-year or 5-year stipulation in terms of them needing to live there as an owner occupant. On the homes that are sold through Axe Homes, we actually have an owner occupancy requirement that flows with the property. And we see this as a significant benefit to the neighborhoods where we're purchasing these homes. And what it does is it guarantees that if someone wants to sell, before they sell to We Buy Ugly Homes, they have an opportunity to talk with us because we always want to help another family purchase that home. And we believe that if more homes are owner occupied, our city's going to be doing a lot better. So thank you for that question.
All right. Again, round of applause for Mike. So again, I want to, thank Axe Housing, the board, the staff for coming up with a solution to help curb this investment. As you saw on the charts, we are almost at the 2017 level of the bulk sales, about 106, if my mind is correct in notes, which is good. So we're trending downward. Now we're going to transition and have a really amazing panel. I told you this is our Super Bowl in Milwaukee. This entertainment is going to be better than Usher, hands down. So we have 4 really amazing people that we're going to bring to share their knowledge of all things real estate. You have their bios in that little pamphlet. If you do not have it, somebody will get you one. But first and foremost, I would like to bring to the hot seats the City of Milwaukee Commissioner of City Development, Mr. Lafayette Crump. We also have VP of Programs at Axe Housing, D. Kemp. CEO of MGIC, who also serves on the board of directors for Axe Housing, Tim Matkey. And of course, the always lovely VP of National Strategic Markets and Affordable Lending at U.S. Bank, Sodi Nichols. So as everybody's getting situated, I will pass this mic. Check, 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 check. 1, 2. AV, you guys? Check. Mic, please. You hear me? Check, check, check. 1, 2. Hold that, please. Okay. Get us started.
Are we all mic'd?
Okay. I'm going to use this, but I won't for them. Yep. You have one? Okay.
We're mic'd in case we have a dance routine for Usher.
Super Bowl ready.
Super Bowl ready.
So just a couple of facts as we get into this amazing, entertaining panel. I told you this was going to be better than Usher. So obviously, I know a lot of you are in the housing space, and you probably know about this already for those who may not. Since 1930, prospective home buyers purchasing in neighborhoods with high populations of Black people or immigrants were considered hazardous credit risk. This practice was eventually recognized as redlining, which you all know. 1968, the federal government passed the Fair Housing Act, making it illegal to deny housing based on race. Today, the most often cited reasons for mortgage denial are debt-to-income ratio, combined loan-to-value ratio, and who can guess the last one? Credit score. I heard somebody say it. So please see Joe Schlitt. He has a prize for you. No, I'm just kidding. In 2019, the federal government began releasing debt-to-income and combined loan-to-value ratios in federal mortgage data. That year, there were around 2.4 million traditional mortgage applications nationwide. So with that, we're going to get into our first question. Of course, we got Commissioner Crump here, and I want to start with you. Why is it so important not only to create inventory, but to find ways to help residents access mortgage products?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ronell, and thank you for the pressure of saying this is going to be better than Usher. That's a lot. As you can see, I'm playing hurt, but I am happy to be here, and I'm all the way over here to keep y'all as safe as possible. I think you have outlined the reasons why it's so important. You've outlined the history how we got here and why we need to do so much to make up for past actions that were, not just individual actions, not just the actions of a limited group of people or a limited, areas in the city, but truly, enshrined in policy and supported by government, supported by financial institutions to keep groups of people from accessing all of the tools that are used to build. We often talk about wealth, but just building family and neighborhood stability. You have to start there before you can even think about wealth. So we have to play a role in addressing that, in making affordable housing, whether that be rental or home ownership. We have to make that available to as many people as possible. I'm in the process right now of working on talking about how our Department of City Development, is going to address the mayor's policy priorities for the coming year. And he's got 5 different sets of priorities. I won't go through all of them. As you can imagine, community economic development, affordable housing are an important component of that. But I recognize that housing plays a role in so many of the other policy plans and the policies that are, or other priorities that are important to the mayor. If you talk about safety, if you talk about equitable transportation, if you talk about ensuring that there is development citywide, housing is a central component of that. And if we don't step in, all of us here, the types of institutions that we lead, it's just not going to get done. So it's imperative that we do the work.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Tim, MGIC leads the private mortgage insurance industry nationally, and your customers are primarily mortgage lenders. Will you give us a high-level overview of what traditional underwriting looks like and the role MGIC plays in expanding opportunities for affordable homeownership for families with barriers?
Sure, thanks. I mean, I think just to echo sort of sentiment, you think about housing stability, you think about sort of able to actually grow wealth, but you think not just about stability for the family, you think about stability for the neighborhoods, right? So MGIC's been around about 67 years, and really the whole premise of our product is you shouldn't have to save up 20% down to be able to afford a home and buy a home. And that's a huge obstacle for homeowners ultimately. That if you can get there, if you have the job, you have sort of the track record of being able to make payments, ultimately how long does it take? Over a decade potentially to save up 20% down to buy a home. So our product effectively allows you to be able to buy it with as little as 3% down. So we really, I think, try to lean into that's what we're here to do and help sort of make home ownership more affordable and overcome that barrier. When you think about how we go about it, it is a lot of the things that we talked about that can be problematic over the history, but credit score, debt to income ratio, and the foundation of that though is to make sure you want someone who's ultimately going to buy a home. You want them to be able to afford the home over the long run. And so we consider success not just being able to get someone to be able to buy a home, but can they afford it over the long run? And the reality is there's other costs that come up, whether it's, especially if you're buying an older home, there's going to be maintenance, routine type of things. Having that education up front that ACT supports and provides to homeowners to make sure that they understand all of those additional costs that come with it. Because what you don't want is someone to buy a home and find themselves 6 months later realizing that they can't afford all the other things that come with a home. Because then they're right back in the cycle of having to go and find a new place to live. But if they can make that transition from rental to home ownership, it provides that stability for their family, not worried about is the landlord going to make me pay 10% more next year? Is the landlord going to force me out and I'm going to have to go find a new place to live? And ultimately, then the community benefits from that too, because you're putting down your roots there, and you're probably going to invest more in your own property that you know that you're actually, the wealth is building within the house, and that wealth is building for your family at the same time, which is different than a renter mentality where the dollars you put into that home aren't going to come back to you ultimately.
Yeah. Thank you. Next question I want to ask Sodi, a really great question. U.S. Bank has made some prominent pledges to support efforts and provide access to capital for families with barriers to home ownership. Tell us a little bit about your national program, Access Home, and specifically the successes you've seen here in Milwaukee.
Yeah. So Access Home was built in Milwaukee. No surprise, because I'm born and raised here. So even though I lead national work, everything always pulls me back home. So when I had an opportunity to build something for US Bank, it was with that in mind. All of the great work and partners that I had the pleasure of working with historically and understanding the challenges that are represented right here in our own city. And so I brought all of our senior leaders from across the country to Milwaukee to be able to see and feel firsthand what this disparity looks like between Black and white homeownership. Us being one of the most segregated cities in the country, again, it was really important that they not only hear from me, but that they see it, that they experience it, that they hear from so many of you that were part of that discussion back in 2019. And so from that work, we were able to launch Access Home. The ask initially was, could I have $500,000 to do this work locally with, again, these partners that I had literally grown up with? And the answer was yes. Again, in 2019, before this was a collective call to action from communities across the country. I'm proud that since then, the initiative has grown to 3.5 million, and announcing here today that we are adding an additional 8.5 million to the initiative of Access Home. Work is really done across the country to advance Black and Hispanic homeownership. We partner with organizations to lead innovative approaches, understanding that if we continued to do what we had always done, we were never going to see any different results. Again, really proud of the fact that Axe Housing leads as our cornerstone partner in this work, and we've been able to make some significant progress in Milwaukee. So born here and continues to thrive here. This initiative has grown now to include a best-in-class special purpose credit program, together with the city of Milwaukee, with a private developer, with Axe Housing. We were able to help the first family that utilized this special purpose credit program, Miss Melody Jones. She purchased a home that she had rented for over 16 years. She was paying $1,600 a month in rent. Through this partnership and through lots of hard work of Axe Coaching, the US Bank team, we were able to have Melody, a single mother of 4, working 3 jobs, to pay that rent for so long, to walk away from the closing table with a new PITI. Do you remember what that means? Payment of $471 and $97,000. So I don't know that there's a better example of the impact we're having here in Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So we got 3% down with the product that Tim offers. So do y'all have a great program. Lafayette is the champion on behalf of himself and the mayor and the city. Now, D, on behalf of Axe Housing, you got to hit us with something great. You know that, right?
I got you.
Tell us about the great mortgage products to make home ownership a reality.
I think it all starts with our home buyer coaching at Axe. It's families working one-on-one with their coaches to develop the habits and behaviors that they need to be successful homeowners. It's not just about families being positioned to buy homes, it's about them being able to keep those homes and be in sustainable and affordable positions. Pre-approval is as exciting to us as closing day. We have families who come to us, and often they have management problems, not money problems. Mm-hmm. So we have to teach them how to manage their money properly, how to really track those expenses, have a budget, understand what's affordable, what goes into that PITI. Because even if you get that great 30-year fixed mortgage product, I need you to understand that your payment could still go up because your taxes increase. I need you to understand how to escrow and why that's an important part of making sure that you keep your home over the long term. So it really is about educating each family based on their unique situation to position them to buy a great home for themselves and put themselves in a position where they're not paying that $1,500, $1,600 a month. That really is just going down the drain. They're not investing in themselves like they could be if they have a home. And it's great when we have products available that are affordable for folks, where they're actually in a position where I'm actually paying less than what I paid for rent to own my own home. And I think the other thing is too, a lot of our families don't even realize the burdens that they're carrying as renters. As a renter, you don't have control over your space. You can't paint that wall just so you're a little bit more comfortable when you get home. You can't buy your kids a pet without asking someone else's permission. One of the best things at ACTS is when we go back to our families who have done a purchase rehab project, and the first thing they want to show you is the ugly color that their child picked to paint their bedroom. But there's so much pride. There's so much pride in being able to let your child make that choice because you were living in a scenario where you didn't even have that choice. So just the freedom of being able to control your own space and to make it your own, to actually feel good when you walk into your home because it's truly yours, it's something that you're investing in, is huge. And that's what produces incredible citizens for our city who care about the inside of the home, the outside of the home, the neighborhood. Our families start neighborhood watches. Our families are outside picking up litter. Our families are painting their houses so the person down the street says, oh, what color is that? My house looks a little bit shady next to yours. I'm gonna have to spruce it up a little bit. So those are all good things that contribute to making our city great.
Dee, I think the point you made there, so trenchant. I was at an event yesterday where we were talking about housing as a component of mental health. Mm-hmm. And you talking about, how you have to ask for permission to do so many things when you're a renter, and what that says to the, not just the adults, but the children in the home. Well, why can't we? Because they won't let us. They won't let us. And the number of times that someone hears that and how it shapes their worldview can have just a stunting impact on someone's belief in their place in the world. And I don't want to, act like there's no place for renting. Some people choose to rent, but what I think we all envision is a world where people have the housing that they choose and not just the housing that they have to be in.
Absolutely. And I think we're really lucky because we do have great lending partners. Mm-hmm. So we're able to go to a family based on their unique situation and give them 2 or 3 options. And what's great over the last couple of years is to see the city develop even more options for our families. We finally have a land trust, y'all. Like, how many cities have a land trust? And we finally got one. And we need that diversity in the market so that we can reach every family's unique needs. So just being able to sit with the family, help them reach pre-approval, which is a huge milestone, and then be able to say, there are 2, 3, 4 great different options you have for lending and within the housing landscape to find that situation that's perfect for you and your family.
Yeah, speaking of, I told y'all this was gonna be good. I have one more question before we get to our audience Q&A. And I feel like you guys kind of were going there. So this is a great alley-oop. I like to speak in sports metaphors, so alley-oop. If you all had a magic wand, how would you change the current mortgage lending climate to make it more accessible for families? And I want to start with Tim, if possible.
I think from my perspective, homeownership is more attainable than I think what a lot of people realize sometimes. I think as Dee said, sometimes they need to have the understanding of the management. But going back to Lafayette's comments, there's been such disenfranchisement over time too. So I think a lot of times people say, there's no way I'm ever gonna own a home. And so I think if I could wave a magic wand, it would be knowing that for a lot more people it is attainable. And if you're gonna pay $1,600 a month in rent, if you can find a home and you're paying less than that and being able to invest in yourself and own your own place and get there sooner with lower down payments, that's something that we want people to recognize as available to them. And you can't fully wave a full magic wand, but I think with some of the things that ACTS is doing, US Bank is doing, the city's doing, it's becoming more attainable than it has been before. But it's gonna take a lot of work to make it even more attainable, quite frankly.
Sodi?
I think taking away the transactional component of homeownership, right? To Dee's point, to have the excitement at pre-approval that we have at closing and even several steps before that. So one of my very specific asks when building this initiative for US Bank was the space and grace to get to people several steps before a traditional first-time homebuyer workshop picks up. To start to have conversations with folks who never even envisioned homeownership as an option, Start there. Give me the space. I once heard at US Bank that the customer that walks into the branch today is our wealth customer in 12 years. And I said, if she gets 12 years, give me 2. Give me 2 years to be able to work with families, to open their eyes to the concept. To your point, Lafayette, that this is an option applicable to you. You can, in fact, do this. The burden of why you haven't isn't solely on your shoulders. And being able to have honest conversations about how you have been kept out of this process historically, and then helping to bring people in. And again, the space, the grace, the opportunity to work and develop partnerships with our families. I think if we can stop looking at it just as that singular transaction, we all start to benefit, as does the community.
Thank you. D.
Just kind of going off what Sodi was saying, I always start my conversations in the community with telling people you're not broken. You're not broken because you don't understand finances. I have an MBA, but nobody ever put a lease in front of me and explained my rights and responsibilities as a renter. No one ever put my credit report in front of me and explained to me how that worked and how important it was to maintain credit. And nobody ever put a contract to own a home in front of me and explained to me how important that was to building wealth and stability in my own life. These are all things that I had to learn from the School of Hard Knocks. So just being able to let people know you're not broken, and there are people and places and resources who can help you achieve this goal. And it's okay if you haven't thought about it before. We're here for you, whether it takes 2 years or 10 years to get you to your goal of home ownership. But I think for me, the greatest thing about being at ACTS is that we don't wait for others to take action. We look at the environment, we adapt, and we act. So it's great to be on a team of doers who actually look at the landscape and say, what's missing? How can we better serve low and moderate income families? Our #1 lender last year was ACTS Lending. And the average PITI of a family who went through our program and utilized ACTS Lending was $911. So there is a way to help low and moderate income families affordably get into housing. We just have to get that message out to them. We have to gracefully work with them and make sure that they understand we view it as our privilege to help them buy their first home. And we're here for them and here for that as long as it takes.
Commissioner Crump.
Thank you. What I'm going to do is just take everything they just said and repackage it and act like it's my own perspective.
So I feel like I need to give you a new question then.
I do think if I were going to wave a magic wand, it would be to address belief and to address access. And so I think we need more people to believe in what is possible, both in themselves and in the broader system. You know, I came in, I started seeing people around the room that are our partners and who are so vital to the work that we do at the City of Milwaukee. And, you know, initially I was like, oh, I better shout out this, I better shout out, and I was like, oh no, I'll be shouting out half the room. There are so many people who are working on, these challenges. And so you talked about belief, but let's talk about access. Access to the information, as well as access to the time to actually spend understanding it and following all the threads that can make these things possible. Because, you know, one of the things we haven't talked about up here, we're focusing on housing, but we know there's so many different elements that go into impacting people's lives. If they're, just at the poverty line, just above the poverty line, sometimes there are things that are keeping people there and the treadmill that they're on to just try to make it. And we, collectively as a society, sometimes think, well, why didn't somebody just do this? They just go to the city's website. They got all these programs. Well, where's the time for them to do that when they have so many other things that they're responsible for? So I want to wave this magic wand and give people time and give them belief that it's going to be worthwhile.
Awesome. So I do have one more follow-up question for you, if you all can. So this is a great example of, partnership. But I'm wondering and curious if you all feel like there is another missing partner that can take this to the next level. If you guys want to share your thoughts.
Well, I'll say they're not missing, but some of the unique things we've been able to do at the City of Milwaukee over the last few years are because of an influx of federal dollars. And so we've been able, our Homes MKE program, where we're renovating up to 150 homes, getting those into the hands of homeowners and responsible landlords. We're able to do that with sizable investment from the federal government, and it is an investment into this community, into our country at large. And frankly, we continue to find ways, in a short pocket of time, to find dollars for security around the world. And we need to think about our security here at home as well.
I think I would say just the will. We need everybody to have the will to do this work. I ask that of the families that we serve, to believe that they can do this, to know that they can, mark things off of this action plan that we've put them together that are gonna ultimately take them to home ownership. At ACTS, we're always looking for ways to be creative and to problem solve. But what I see too often in rooms of incredible people like this is we're looking for reasons to say no. We're not looking for reasons to say yes. We're not looking for the methods to be more creative or think outside the box. And we've got to stop that insanity. We've got to be willing to say, okay, this has given us this level of results. How do we kick it up a notch? And then be willing to do that work and be willing to understand that when you do that, everything's not going to work. Some things are going to go wrong, and that's okay. Let's figure that out. Let's tweak things where we need to, but let's not give up on creating new and better opportunities to get people into affordable home ownership. Let's look collectively for reasons to say yes and not settle on reasons to say no.
Tim Sodi?
I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here because everybody's here because they care about this, right? But I do think it's the community sort of involvement and thinking about how do we turn this into a positive and a can-do attitude, right? This isn't an issue that's just specific to Milwaukee, but the reality is all the issues when you get to housing do feel very specific to the community you're in. And I think if we want to make our community better, thinking about how do you make housing better for those that live in it is ultimately something that we all should want, because I think it provides a stability. I think it helps ultimately with crime and sort of all those other things. And I think it also builds to sort of the vibrancy of the community ultimately over the long run. And so I would say, again, for those who are here, I think you already probably believe that. But I think telling other people and making sure they understand how critical housing is for our community to be successful is the other part that I would sort of talk about as the missing component here.
Yeah, and from a banking perspective, I think it's what we struggle with is the people, right? We can sit in boardrooms all day long building beautiful initiatives and products. But if we don't have the frontline team that cares enough to do this work, which is oftentimes, again, preaching to the choir, heavy lifting, right? And then also to ensure that it's people that community is comfortable with, right? So increased representation in this industry is so critical and it's often missed, right? So as part of this work that we're doing under Access Home, we had launched in September of 2022 a program that welcomed 12 new to industry Black mortgage loan officers to the organization and trained them and paid them for a year to be better equipped to be able to serve the very specific needs of the community that they represent. And in the next 45 days, we'll be launching a similar cohort of Hispanic, Spanish-speaking loan officers. Again, recognizing that what happens here doesn't always make its way here. To your point, Lafayette, around access, we need advocates from the inside out that reach out to community to ensure that there's awareness and support to get someone to the finish line.
Good. So I do want to I think I've got a good feel for who's in the room. Realtors, raise your hand. Brokers. Our lenders, former lenders, current lenders, investors, okay, developers, board members, those just want to learn what Axe Housing is doing? Good, okay. So now we're in our Q&A portion, and this is where all of you all can be very active and figure out how you can play a part in helping Axe get to that, is it 100 homes, Mike? And or get them to that $10 million fund to close out that campaign. So any burning audience questions that you want to figure out? Yes, sir.
The renters find out about you so that they can learn of your services.
We use a lot of different methods. So we have geniuses in our marketing department who are great about sharing our family stories. I think our families are our strongest advocates. When you meet that person who looks like you, who is in the similar situation to you, and they bought a home, you're gonna ask, how'd you do it? And if they send them we encourage families, send them our way. I love we give out these welcome home gift baskets that are actually these huge totes. So people are toting them into their houses after closing, and people are like, well, where did you get that? Axe Housing. They helped me buy my house. So definitely we always wanna have our alumni families talking about our program, but we do a lot of formal community events. We're out tabling events. We're at churches a lot of times. We're at schools. But we have to go into the community. We have to go where people are at who honestly are working every day, taking care of their kids, paying their rent, and just don't have the time and bandwidth to find out how to become homeowners or think that renting is their only option. So we have to meet people where they're at, and then we have to let them know and hopefully get them excited about the opportunity to purchase their own home.
All right, we have a question right behind the beautiful woman there.
Thank you. If allotted the opportunity, I have a couple quick questions. My first very quick question is for Dee. With the Axe lending, does the buyer have to work with an Axe agent in order to take advantage of the Axe lending products?
Traditionally, Axe lending was a program where you're purchasing and rehabbing a home. And in those situations, we do want you to work with an Axe realtor. You have an entire team within Axe that is helping you not just find that home, but do a scope of work on that home and then actually get that rehab done. We do, outside of the purchase rehab, we're doing loans for people who have opportunities to buy their home under market value. We're doing loans for folks who want to buy their home through the land trust. And in those situations, absolutely, you have your choice of realtor.
Okay, perfect. Second, very quick questions for Sodi. When it comes to Access Home, the grants and down payment assistance that's provided with that, can it be partnered with the grants and assistance that Axe Housing has, or is it completely separate when it comes down to an underwriting process?
Yeah, so we look at all layering opportunities. So we have had some success in being able to layer the Access Home down payment assistance with some of the funding that's available. I'd love to say that it's just open and everything can be layered, but it really is specific scenarios that we need to make sure that we take a look at. But built into it is up to $12,500 in down payment assistance through the product itself, and an additional credit of up to $5,000 to help buy down the interest rate. And in today's market, that is really, really an important component. So we tried to look across the board at the multiple ways that we could impact.
Okay, that's amazing. And I'm so sorry to take up the time, but I have one more question. For Mr. Crump, how have you seen your experience in law pretty much influence your current position when it comes down to city development and your affordable housing initiative?
Sure, thank you. I think the benefit of a law school education is training your brain to think a certain way, to evaluate problems from a certain perspective, and to be able to put yourself in the shoes of both sides of an issue. And so that's certainly been impactful in the work that we do. As you can imagine, there are quite a bit of legal issues that crop up throughout the work, but I always remind folks that I'm not playing the role of the city attorney here. And so we will get guidance from the internal experts on those issues, but it does help me certainly understand when they're explaining certain things and why we can or cannot do things. And occasionally there may be something that I'm able to bring up that hasn't been thought about because it's just kind of been dismissed out of hand. But there's an element of the law that comes into play that we can explore. I do want to touch on that last answer also that Sodi gave about the layering. We've been very excited with our own down payment assistance program that has been able to be utilized where even if someone, qualifies, they still have this chunk of down payment that they need to address. And we're able to use our down payment assistance to help with that as well. And so having all these different programs available has really been impactful on families.
We have a question. Sorry. Oh,
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to add to that really quickly, like the ability to layer and to make sure that our families don't leave any money on the table, because that's what down payment assistance is all about. That is what makes for what we call a preferred lending partner. And so we want to work with institutions like US Bank and a bunch of my other lending partners who I know who are here today, who not only do they have internal great products and down payment assistance, they're willing to accept our down payment assistance as well, which helps us keep that housing affordable for folks. If I can get that $150,000 house, but ultimately my loan is only $135,000 because I was able to access down payment assistance through my lender and through Axe Housing, that's a win for that family and it's a win for our community.
A question on the left side of the room.
Good afternoon. I remember that Axe Housing was started as a neighborhood project around St. Michael's Church on 24th and Cherry. And my question is, are there advantages or disadvantages to focusing on certain neighborhoods? For example, in my neighborhood, we have 6 Vinebrook homes within 2 blocks.
I think it's really important for us to actually not focus too much on neighborhoods. We're about empowering families. So for us, it's you get to make these choices, and we believe that you are smart enough about the needs of your families to make those choices. But to what you're saying, when I'm out in the community, it's really important to me to make sure that people know that the whole city of Milwaukee is a great city. And don't let other people tell you about the value of a neighborhood. I am a North Side girl. I was born and raised on the North Side. And because that is the predominantly Black area of the city, you hear a lot of negative things about the North Side. I am very quick to point out to people as a lifelong North Side resident, I have never been a victim of a crime. And I believe that's because I don't mix myself up in things I don't have any business being involved in. So I don't care what neighborhood you live in. I don't care if it's the suburbs. If you're asking for problems, they're going to come. If you're there to be solutions oriented and make your neighborhood the best neighborhood possible for you and your family, you can achieve that as well.
Other questions? I do have one, maybe if somebody needs to take time. So one of the challenges I've seen is as these homes, I know Axe has the rehab program as well, but I'm curious in where you all sit, have you all seen issue with having the necessary individuals to do the work, right? So I'm buying a home for the first time. Real estate has exploded and everybody's rehabbing, everybody's trying to, do something new. So how do you all find the proper construction company, carpenter, whatever, to do the work in these respective redevelopments? Dee, we're gonna start with you because I know that's something that you do, but after that, do you go outside? Do you have a preferred list? Because I did forget to ask if there were any construction folks in the room who own companies that do handiwork or whatever. So this might be enticing for them.
Absolutely. If you're a contractor, come see your girl.
Yeah.
But it is a challenge, definitely. There's a lot of rehab that's happening in the city, and not only that, we have to deal with those stereotypical issues. If I'm a contractor and I have the ability to go do a job in River Hills, what's my incentive to come and work on that house on Cherry? So really finding contractors that are mission oriented like we are, that understand the value of the work that we're trying to do. We definitely have the benefit of having a history of doing these purchase rehabs with our families. So we're able to tap into our families and see who did they have a great experience with, who met the timelines, who provided great service, on time and on budget and share those resources with families. But we have to continuously be about the business of recruiting tradespeople and contractors who are willing to work with the families that we serve. So if you know them, definitely send them our way.
Anybody else? Angie.
So I know that this is outside of the typical Axe Mile, so maybe this is a question for you, Lafayette. There's so much vacant land, and more each day as we, demo troubled homes. Are there any future plans for helping to subsidize new construction with the housing shortage that we have?
Yeah, there is. That's a great question. Actually, the event I was at yesterday where the issue of mental health came up, we were announcing the start of the mayor's Raise and Revive program, where we are, our preference would be that if the city takes over a property through foreclosure, which isn't our preference to begin with, we'd prefer a family be able to work things out and stay in their home. They don't stay in the home, and then the city takes possession of the property. Some of those properties can be salvaged. Some of those properties can be rehabbed. Some ultimately are going to have to get torn down. That leaves the vacant lots throughout the city of Milwaukee. And so we're looking to raise, R-A-Z-E, I always have to say that, a number of those properties which are really unsightly in neighborhoods. But then there's the Revive component where we are designing a program to build back on those sites. So some of those sites will be, will be local gathering spaces in the community, but some of them will absolutely be the site of new housing built by, a number of our partners throughout the city of Milwaukee. And it's crucial. We have a housing shortage. We've learned through our work with the Community Development Alliance that the process of building homes in the city of Milwaukee essentially flatlined years ago when the numbers show that when the vast majority of white people in the city of Milwaukee had the homes that they wanted, they stopped building. And then the builders moved out to the suburbs when families moved out to the suburbs. So there has not been that building boom in the city of Milwaukee. And so, partners like so many of the folks we have in the city, but certainly the city of Milwaukee needs to play a part in addressing that issue.
Yes, in the back of the room there.
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing that I've heard so far today is that Vinebrook and other out-of-town investors are slowing down and maybe even backing out. I'm just wondering, does ACTS have, as part of its model, an ability to reach out to people who may be getting ready to sell their homes, thinking about selling their homes, to encourage them to come to ACTS first to help keep their neighborhood stable?
Absolutely. We need to, and I really feel like this needs to be a city-wide initiative. There's a couple of things we need to do. One, we need to make sure that families who want to sell their homes understand that they can say to their realtor, I want my home to be owner occupied. I don't want it to go to a landlord who's going to rent it. I want a family to be in this home that I'm leaving. So as buyers and sellers, there's a certain element of control that we have there. A beautiful thing about the work that we've been doing is when families in the community reach out to us and say just that. How do I get this home into the hands of ACTS Housing? Because I know if I do, it's going to go to a family that's going to occupy that house. So I think we all have shared interest in owner occupancy. It's another one of those areas where we need to educate our community a little bit more on how to ensure that's happening on a regular basis. And we're definitely looking at organizations like Vinebrook that are pulling out. We're definitely looking at those portfolios and saying, okay, in our position, you shouldn't have got these in the first place. So how do we get them back and get them into the hands of homeowners?
Yep.
If I would give a little plug, and Michael, you can.
Uh-oh.
No, I think
Michael, is that okay?
I think this will help. ACTS Homes. The faster we can scale ACTS Homes and close the funding gap in order to create scale to that concept, and the more awareness there is within the city of what ACTS is doing to maybe acquire those homes, I think would elevate
answer the question that you brought forth as to how do people know that ACTS is a player in the space. And so the faster that scales and we close that funding gap, ACTS will then become the household name that says, hey, ACTS is buying, we're trying to sell, and it will help escalate that issue.
Yeah, sure.
Any rebuttal to that? Otherwise, I do have a question if nobody else does. So one of the things I think is interesting when I travel other places and then I invite people to Milwaukee as a Milwaukee ambassador is we have, as you know, and a great number of 2-flat homes, as they call them, or duplexes. Does that qualify for the program as well, or is it single family only?
Absolutely, duplexes qualify, and we love when families are thinking in that entrepreneurial spirit. And not only that, post-COVID, there are so many families who want to be together. So that if something like that were to ever happen again, grandma lives upstairs and can help me with the kids, or auntie lives upstairs. So we see a lot of families looking at multi-units. Again, it's about inventory and availability, but definitely the interest is there, and it's always exciting to see somebody go into their first home ownership opportunity, really thinking about entrepreneurship and saying, we have a young lady who did our tour of homes that we visited, was 19 years old when she purchased her home, and she bought a duplex, and I asked her why, and she said, because I don't want to pay my mortgage. I want somebody else to do that. I was like, oh my God, if I was you at age 20, I'd have an empire. So definitely, it's something that we encourage people to do, and it's definitely something that's doable through our program.
Awesome. So we have time for one more question, and I do want the panelists to close us out with their 10-second parting remarks. So in the back.
All right, just real quick, piggybacking off the last question. Is it, does the requirement meet the traditional 1 to 4 family, or is there like a cap? I know typically the single family homes is designated as 1 to 4 units. So is it just duplexes, or can you go up to 4 units and then after 4, it's like a cutoff?
Yeah, it's 1 to 4 units. We had a young lady last year. She's a teacher assistant with MPS. She bought a 4-family that she occupies with her son, and she is projected to make more income from the rental property than from MPS.
And she worked with you on picking that house, didn't she? You gave her the game?
I'm out here trying, y'all. I'm out here trying.
All right. So real quick, we're almost at time. 15 seconds, closing remarks. We'll start with Sodi.
Yeah, I'll just say, so national work, right? But any stage that I'm on, and I'm on many, I always introduce myself as the Puerto Rican chick from the south side of Milwaukee. We'll always continue to do so, and it's because of the partnership, the success, the opportunity that's presented here. So I just want to really say thank you to each of you for the work that you do. It helps inspire, and for us to be able to build, scale, and replicate. The country hears about the work being done in Milwaukee, and I just wanted to make sure that you guys were acknowledged for that.
I'm going to build off that a little bit. There's a lot of other cities that are struggling with the same thing that Milwaukee is, and I think a lot of what people look for in the country is, what does a successful model look like? And I think with ACTS at the forefront of a lot of things, I think Milwaukee can be really successful in this. It can be something that other cities can copy around the country. I truly believe that.
D.
I would just say thank you. Thank you for your support, for your passion in the area of housing and making sure that Milwaukee is a community where anyone who wants to own a home can own one affordably. Let's not lose sight of that goal, and let's keep working collectively to get there. And thanks so much I love being at ACTS, you guys. I work in a laboratory where we are able to try and figure out how to serve the unserved and the ones who are often forgotten. So we greatly appreciate that opportunity, and we greatly appreciate and continue to need your support.
Well, that's tough to follow, but I will echo the thanks to everybody here and everybody on the panel. And I'll just say that we are going to hopefully create a lot more work for all of you to do. We're working on our growing MKE plan right now to increase the number of housing options available throughout the city of Milwaukee, more accessory dwelling units, more multifamily in different places throughout the city, looking to not just increase the supply of available housing, but also take the pressure off the costs for other housing. So again, thank you all for all that you do. Thank you, Renell. Amazing as always.
Well, round of applause for our panelists. Again, this was our Super Bowl. Unfortunately, I left my skates in my trunk, so I wasn't going to be able to impersonate Usher today. I had intended to, but I can do a mean chair spin if you stick around. But before we close, I do want to bring up Mike to close us out and give us some parting words about all the things that happened today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Renell. Thank you, Heather. Thank you to the awesome panelists for being here with us today. There was one other question that I know was on the tip of everyone's tongue, but you didn't want to be like the first one to ask it, so I'll ask it for you. What more can I do to help? Right? I'm so glad you asked. So you have received, or you will receive momentarily, a survey in your email. And this is your way to give us feedback. We thrive on feedback. It's also your way to raise your hand if you want to come on a tour, if you want to make a gift to support our work, if you want to connect us to a partner or someone who we should work with, or if you'd like to volunteer. So please, our goal is to make Milwaukee the best place in the whole country for low-income families who aspire to be homeowners. And with all of your help, I know we can do it. So thanks again.
So if you haven't already, I'm gonna have a directive. This is not in the script, but please tell somebody, like the gentleman said in the front, the more people that know about Axe Housing and the story and how they can get involved, the faster that we will get to this goal of having more homeowners, which makes Lafayette's job easier and everybody else on this panel. So tell somebody about the great work. Thank you to the board chair, Heather. I don't know if you want to say anything to close this out, but again, share the work. And hopefully you are having a great day and get home safely. Thank you.